Today is all about shellfish and shrimp for 4 easy but elegant recipes. And needless to say, my dog Ziggy, hi, he goes wild when there's the smell of fish and seafood in the house. So he's gonna be racing around the kitchen with me, aren't you, buddy? Yeah, you can't have any of that. So first off the bat, we're gonna do an oysters Rockefeller. This is my own personal recipe, followed up by a skillet meal with orzo and shrimp, some clams and linguine, and to finish it all off, steamed mussels with Thai curry paste and coconut milk. So we're gonna get started with the oysters Rockefeller. Now here I have 12 gorgeous oysters. Now when you buy oysters for Rockefeller, I find that the size matters more than the type. Of course, oysters can taste different depending on where they're from, but you want something nice and big so that the shell can hold all the topping. So first thing we gotta do, shuck the oysters. So this is how I like to shuck the oyster. This is my favorite oyster knife. Has a little curve at the tip, not too sharp. After you've scrubbed the oysters really thoroughly, take a nice thick clean kitchen towel. I like folding it over the oyster so that just this hinge is exposed. That's where you want to put the curved tip of the oyster knife, and you just kind of dig in until you pop it. The oyster is attached to the flat bottom of the shell, right in the middle, right around there. So what I like to do is slide my oyster knife in, basically cutting the oyster mussel away from the top shell. See, that's where it's attached. And that's about it. Now you can throw away, and now I'm gonna save the juice inside the oyster. That's called the liqueur. We're gonna add it to the filling, and then you wanna loosen the oyster. Just like the mussel is attached to the shell on the top, it's also attached to the shell on the bottom. So you wanna scoop under the oyster, and then the oyster can move nice and freely, and then into a pan it goes. Now, I have this specialty pan because I like oysters and I cook them all the time. If you don't have this pan, you can easily use 2 cake pans and just fill them the bottom with rock salt, and then you nestle the oyster halves right in the rock salt. All right, 1 down, 11 to go. Those oysters all nicely nestled in that pan. Now time to make the filling. Here I have a nonstick pan, a nice big 12-incher. Just gonna saute some shallots and a little bit of garlic, just until they're nice and softened. Now time to add the spinach, which is the basis for all Rockefeller fillings. This is 5 ounces of baby spinach, which is about 5 cups. Right into the skillet it goes. We're just gonna cook this until it wilts down. Takes a minute or so. All right, you can see that spinach is nicely wilted down. Now I'm gonna turn the heat off because I wanna add some Pernod. Now Pernod is an anise, licorice flavored liqueur. Pernod is French. We're gonna add just about 2 tablespoons. Now you definitely wanna add this off the heat, because if you add it on the heat, the pan will probably catch on fire, and I know this from experience. We're gonna turn the heat on gently and let that Pernod simmer down. Just takes a minute or so. All right, that looks pretty good. We're gonna set that there. Turn the heat off, let that sit for a minute. Now we're gonna use the food processor to grind it all to a nice puree. Now one thing I like adding is a piece of sandwich bread, but you wanna take the crusts off because the crusts don't grind down finely, and you wind up tasting them and seeing them in the puree. And this is sort of a refined, elegant appetizer. All right, back into the food processor. Just gonna tear the bread up into pieces, grind this bread into crumbs. All right, now time to add the spinach. Now in goes some cheese, just 3 tablespoons of finely shredded Gruyere, which has a nice nutty flavor that I really appreciate with the Pernod. Not too much, just a little, and some fresh parsley. This is a 1/4 cup of fresh parsley leaves. Pulse this together till it's almost like a pesto. All right, that looks pretty good. I forgot to add the oyster liqueur that we saved from shucking the oysters. Now there are some bits in this oyster liqueur, bits of shell, maybe a little bit of grit. So I like running it through a little strainer, catch all that so it doesn't go into the filling. There we go. Blend that in. That looks better. Much better. You'll notice I haven't added any salt or pepper. That's because depending on the oysters, how briny they are, different amounts of salt need to be added to the filling. So, give it a little taste. Oh, these could use just a little salt. Add a little pinch of pepper, little heat. Stir that in. All right, Time to top the oysters. Just taking a spoon, it's as simple as dolloping it right on top. So under the broiler, about 6 to 8 inches from the broiler element, it takes about 10 minutes. In the oven they go. Oh, they are gorgeous. Oh, that is a perfect looking oysters Rockefeller. They're hot, they're bubbling around the edges, slightly browned on top, little gratiné, and very hot. They need a few minutes to cool, just in time to get some wine. Almost anything goes with the good oysters Rockefeller because you have the spinach, the little bit of Gruyere, but I love champagne if it's that kind of occasion, or a good white wine. This is a Chablis. That's a white wine from the region of Burgundy in France. If it's a white wine from Burgundy, it is a Chardonnay, but Chablis is known for a stainless steel Chardonnay, so it has a clean, crisp flavor, pairs perfectly with the spinach and the oysters. It's a good sound. Now this is great for a party, oysters Rockefeller. Truth be told, Ian and I have been known to sit down and just have this with a few vegetables on the side for dinner because they are just that good. All right, they are cool enough now. A little lemon over the top is always nice. All right, let's try one. I might put 2 on my plate. Oh man. I love these. If the shell's not too hot, and the shell isn't hot, I like holding it up. It's just shorter distance to my mouth so it doesn't go all over my shirt. Oh yeah. You can see the steam coming out of there. Such good flavors. The spinach, and then the Pernod, then the sort of shallot background with a little bit of cheese and parsley, followed by a little sip of Chablis. Oh, and it goes perfectly with the Chablis. The flavors all just match. And that's just the first of 4 great recipes I'm gonna show you today, all using shellfish. Coming up, we're gonna make a skillet dish with shrimp and orzo. Love what you're watching? Take your cooking to the next level with our Essential membership. Get instant access to thousands of recipes, tips, techniques, product reviews, and step-by-step videos. Our members app allows you to search by ingredient, set dietary preferences, and save your favorite recipes. For those looking to level up, our newest feature, ATK Classes, offers more in-depth instruction led by ATK experts, so you can gain greater confidence in the kitchen. Start your free trial by visiting the App Store or going to americastestkitchen.com/YouTube today. This shrimp and orzo skillet dinner is a crowd favorite because it features feta and spinach and it's topped with tomatoes. So all you need is 1 big tomato. I washed this already. Gonna cut out the core. This is a pretty rustic chop. There's nothing special to it. Some bigger pieces, some smaller pieces. It's all good. What I like about putting it on top at the end is because the dish is all warm and the tomato just starts to heat through and release some of its fresh flavor, basting the orzo underneath. That looks pretty good. Into a bowl it goes. Next up, a couple scallions. Trim off the ends. And as always, I like cutting the white parts a little more finely than the green parts because they're a little denser. So I'll cut them in half. There we go. Put them all back together, give them a nice fine slice. Into the bowl it goes with the tomato. As I said, just a little salt, pepper, and olive oil, about a tablespoon. You want to use the good stuff, extra virgin here. Salt and pepper, just to taste. And that's it. This is just gonna sit off to the side while we start cooking the orzo and the shrimp. Now here I have a 12-inch nonstick skillet. All right, to get started, we're gonna add, that's 1 chopped fennel head and 1 chopped onion. Now that was 2 tablespoons of oil in there. Heat up over medium heat until shimmering. Add a little bit of salt to this. I'm just gonna cook it till it gets softened and a little bit browned around the edges. All right, that's gonna take a few minutes to soften and get nicely browned, which gives us time to talk about the shrimp. Here I have a pound of shrimp. Now these are extra large, also known as 21-25s. That means there's between 21 and 25 shrimp in a pound. Now, a couple of things when shopping for shrimp. First, Buy it frozen, slack it out or thaw it out yourself. When you buy it, look at the ingredient list. You should see one ingredient on there, and that is shrimp. If you see anything else like salt or anything that sounds like a sodium, don't buy it. It means those shrimp have been treated to hold on to more moisture. So you're paying for water, not shrimp. But more importantly, they don't taste as good. They almost have a chemically taste. So stick to the real deal. Now these have been P&D. That means peeled and deveined. And the tails aren't on, which is perfect for this dish because we're going to stir them into the orzo, and it's nice not to have the tails around. So I've been thawing them, slacking them in seafood terms, on paper towels because you want them nice and dry. I'm going to transfer them to a bowl. These gorgeous shrimp don't need a lot, but I am going to season them with a little bit of olive oil. There's about a tablespoon of olive oil and some salt and pepper, and just let them hang out until they're ready to be added to the skillet. Let's check on the onions and the fennel. Oh, they look perfect. Softened, a little brown around the edges. Time to continue on with garlic. Not a little bit of garlic, a lot of garlic. This is 6 cloves. Oh, that's good. Now for the orzo. 2 cups of orzo, right in. We just want to coat the orzo with the oil. That helps it prevent from sticking together as it cooks later. A little bit of white wine or vermouth. I love having dry white vermouth on hand because it just is shelf stable and you can add it as you're cooking. It's a good pantry ingredient. I'm gonna add about 1/4 cup. I like adding it before adding the broth. It gives it time to cook out a little bit so it doesn't have that sharp alcohol flavor. In a hot pan like this, it only takes 30 seconds or so to cook out. Now goes in the broth, chicken broth. I know, kind of unusual. If you're cooking shrimp, you think you'd use clam juice, but I love the hearty flavor that chicken broth adds here. So 3½ cups chicken broth, right in. Now you want to stir it right away. Make sure that there are no clumps of orzo. We're going to bring this to a simmer and cook it with the lid partially on. You want a little evaporation, but you want to trap some of the heat, so that's a partial lid situation. And it takes about 8 or so minutes for this orzo to get mostly tender. As it cooks, I'm going to be sure to go in there and scrape the bottom so it doesn't stick. All right, the liquid has all been absorbed by the orzo and it is nearly cooked through. It's just al dente, which is perfect because there's just a little more cooking to do. Now we're going to add the spinach. This is 5 ounces of baby spinach. I gave it a coarse chop. That just means it'll wilt nicely and not get all stringy as it wilts. It only takes about a minute or so to cook down. Now, if at any point the pan looks dry, don't hesitate to add a little water or more chicken broth. But the spinach is going to add liquid. The shrimp is going to add liquid. At the end, it kind of all works out. Now we're going to add a little fresh lemon juice and a little bit of feta. I'm going to save some feta for the top because I think it looks pretty, but this feta will melt in and make sort of a nice creamy sauce. I like it when you get little pockets of feta. When you serve it, they're like these little creamy presents. Last, the shrimp, which have been sitting over here. I'm just going to sprinkle them over the top, and they will release a lot of liquid into this orzo. Now the lid goes back on. We're going to cook until the shrimp are cooked through. It takes about 5 minutes. All right, it's been 5 minutes. Oh, those shrimp look perfectly cooked. They're nice and curled up. All right, time to take it off the heat. Oh. Now, this is when I like to take a serving spoon. You can see a lot of that liquid from the shrimp sitting on top. Just kind of stir that liquid in just a little bit. Let it get down into the orzo. Let it help flavor the orzo and loosen it up a little bit. Now, I like using this dish because it's pretty to serve from. You can just drop it on the counter. So I'm just going to take the tomatoes, put them right over the top. Again, let the heat from the shrimp soften those tomatoes, the tomato juices in the bottom of the bowl. And that's why this dish is one of my favorites. It just has so much flavor. A little bit of feta. And that's it. It's as easy as it gets. It's a 1 skillet meal. All right. Take a little here. Perfect. Oh, that orzo looks good and creamy, and this feta on top is just starting to melt. The fennel, all that garlic we added in the beginning, When you taste the shrimp, you taste the tomatoes. The shrimp are perfectly cooked because we added them just at the end and let them steam for 5 minutes. And it's just the first of 2 pasta dishes we're making today, because coming up we have clams with linguine, cherry tomatoes, and capers.
Love our in-depth reviews? Get the latest from our reviews team delivered straight to your inbox. Our well-equipped cook newsletter provides top product picks, no-nonsense buying guides, and must-try recipes. No extra fluff, just the smartest ways to shop, save, and cook. Sign up for free now at americastestkitchen.com/newsletter.
It's time to make clams with linguine, and there are lots of great recipes out there. Some are pretty simple and lean, just using clam juice, maybe a little butter. Others add some cured pork like pancetta or bacon. But mine adds a lot of cherry tomatoes because I love how their acidic flavor pairs with the clams. To get started, we're also going to add a lot of garlic, no surprise here. But this time I'm going to slice it thinly because I like getting little hits of garlic as you eat. So here I have 6 cloves, and this guy's a big one. You're pretty. I'm just going to slice it nice and thin using a paring knife. I just think it's easier to slice things thinly using a paring knife. Notice I cut a few slices, then I put it flat side down. That just makes it easier so the garlic doesn't roll around. That's it for the garlic. All right, now let's bring this over to the stove where I have 2 tablespoons of butter melting in a nice big pot. Now you can use a Dutch oven, or again, I'm using a brazier because I love these pots. I have an arsenal of them, different kinds and finishes. 2 tablespoons of butter, medium heat. In goes the garlic. In goes 1 onion that I chopped fine. A little bit of red pepper flakes just for a little kick of heat. This is just gonna cook for about 5 minutes or so, until the onion is nice and softened and the garlic starts to get a little golden around the edges. It's been a few minutes. You can see the onion is softened and the garlic pieces are starting to get a little browned around the edge, which is perfect. I love that slightly browned garlic flavor. All right, in goes some white wine, or again, dry vermouth, about half a cup. And that will scrub down any brown bits that are fond that have started to form on the bottom of the pan, and that's good flavor. Also going to add some lemon zest, about half a teaspoon of fresh lemon zest. I washed this lemon already, and I'm just going to zest it right into the pan. That looks pretty good. Just going to cook this a couple minutes till this wine has reduced and looks a little syrupy. While that simmers down, let's talk about the clams. Here I have some gorgeous count neck clams. Those are the little guys, which I prefer to use in this dish because they sit nicely on top of the linguine. Now the thing about buying these is about 36 clams, 3 to 4 pounds. You want to scrub the dickens out of them because they can be really sandy, and the sand can get caught in between the seam and the ridges of the shell. Now, a lot of people use a brush to scrub them, but I love using a real scrubby sponge because, again, it just really scrubs any grit out from hidden spaces. All right, that wine has cooked down and is nice and syrupy. Time to add the steaming liquid for the clams. In this case, I'm using chicken broth. Half a cup of chicken broth, and in go the clams. There we go, on goes the lid. So I'm gonna make sure they're perfectly cooked before we finish the sauce and cook the pasta. It's been about 5 minutes. Time to take a peek. Let me turn the heat off. This is perfect because all the clams have popped open. Now, if there's a stubborn one or two, it could be really fresh. I continue to cook it for a couple minutes. If it refuses to open, you should toss it. It's not going to be a good clam. If some of the garlic and onions come with it, that's okay. It's going back into the sauce. I'm going to set these clams aside. I'm going to cover them with a plate, make sure they stay nice and warm while we finish cooking the sauce. All right, now's the time I add the cherry tomatoes. There's 3 cups of cherry tomatoes. Sometimes I leave them whole, but I prefer it when I take the time to cut them in half. I just think the size is a little nicer over the linguine. Some capers and a little bit of lemon juice. Just gonna put this back over the heat. We're gonna cook it until the cherry tomatoes are nice and softened. And you can tell the sauce is pretty loose. That's good. It's gonna thicken ever so slightly, but we're actually gonna finish cooking the pasta in the sauce, so I wanna leave it on the loose side. That is looking perfect. You can see the cherry tomatoes have started to wilt. Now we're gonna finish with a little bit of Parmesan. And I know a lot of clam linguine recipes don't use cheese, but I really like the little bit of flavor it adds. I was gonna finish with 2 tablespoons of butter and a little bit of parsley. All right, a little bit of pepper. Don't want to season it with salt at this point because it is going to reduce, and we're going to add the clams, which are salty, and the linguine, which is going to be well seasoned. So as long as it tastes pretty well seasoned at this point, you should be good to go. That's good. Going to put the lid on this and let it hang out while we cook the pasta. Going to season it with a little salt, but not as much salt as I usually add to pasta water. Again, because the clams, they can be pretty briny. All right, in goes the pasta, a pound of linguine. All right, so we're gonna cook this linguine. Now we want it not just al dente, we want it a little before al dente, so a little underdone, again, because we're gonna let it finish cooking in the sauce. Now I'm gonna give it a good drain in the sink. Now I'm gonna add the cooked pasta right to the sauce. Now we're just gonna put the whole thing back over the heat and continue to cook it until the pasta is al dente and the sauce is thickened nicely and coats the strands of linguine. The pasta has absorbed the sauce. The sauce is thickened nicely around the linguine. All right, time to add the clams and any of the juice that's in the bottom of that bowl. Oh. Now this is definitely a family style meal, especially if you cook it in something pretty like this braisiere. All right, and you can just drop this whole thing right on the table. Sometimes I like to sprinkle with a little parsley on top. There you go. Go in there, get some linguine. Oh, so good. Some clams. Time to give it a nice big old taste. I want to get a fork with a little everything. The first thing you taste is the clams, their briny sweetness, the acidity of the tomatoes, and then you get the background notes, the lemon, the little bit of butter, and that chicken broth. You don't really taste it, but it adds this hearty undercurrent, so it makes the whole thing feel hearty. And we still have one more recipe to round out the day, and that is steamed mussels with Thai curry paste and coconut milk. To finish out our day of shellfish, I'm going to show you how to make nicely steamed mussels. But these mussels have a ton of flavor. So I'm using coconut milk and some red Thai curry paste. To get started, almost everything goes in the pot. First step, some coconut milk. This is half a cup of coconut milk. All right, we're going to thin that out with half a cup of water. Now here comes the biggest flavor of the day, Thai red curry paste. Now I've done this with a variety of different brands of curry paste. They all work well here, but they all contain different amounts of salt. So we're going to season it at the very end. About 3 tablespoons of the Thai red curry paste. All right. Next up, a little bit of garlic. I've already minced this. Into the pot it goes. Some scallion whites. I saved the greens. We're going to use them as a garnish as we serve. And just a little bit of ginger. Now, fresh ginger is great, but this ginger in a tube, I like to use for recipes like this, where ginger doesn't play a central role, it's just a background note. That's it, we're gonna whisk this together. Oh, on the stove this goes. We're gonna bring this to a boil before we add the mussels. All right, we're at a boil. In goes 1 chopped tomato and the mussels. This is just 2 pounds of mussels, perfect for 2 people for dinner. On goes the lid. Now we're gonna let these mussels cook until they pop open. And that can take anywhere from 4 to 9 minutes. It really depends on how hot your stove is, what kind of pot you're using, and how fresh the mussels are. All right, let's bring this to the counter. I love this meal. Comes together like that, and it feels kind of fancy. All right, now, this is how I like to serve them. I put some steamed jasmine rice in the bottom. I'm gonna use a slotted spoon to put the mussels right on top. Now, as I mentioned, different brands of curry paste can have different amounts of sodium, and the mussels too can be more or less briny. So I like to season this sauce to taste just before serving. Ooh, a little bit of a kick. I'll whisk that salt in. Oh, just gonna ladle some of this broth right over the mussels. Here are the scallion greens that I set aside when I cut up those whites that went in the pot. Some fresh cilantro leaves. Oh, and when it mixes with that sauce, they release their flavor. A little bit of lime. Got some limes over here from Mr. Ian. All right, so I learned this trick when eating mussels. I forget where I was. There's usually one shell you can find it where the mussel has fallen out. I'm gonna use that as a pincer. You can just pick up a mussel, dip it in the sauce. The mussels have a clean flavor, but the sauce, it's spicy. The coconut milk is nice and rich. The real treat though, you do need a fork for. It's the rice on the bottom. Jasmine rice. Ooh, look, there's a loose mussel. This is the ultimate bite right here. Such a good dinner. See you next time. If you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head over to americastestkitchen.com and get a free trial of our ATK Essential membership. While you're there, you can sign up for our free email newsletters and download our app. So, what are you waiting for?